Hello and welcome once again to the Dwarven Tavern. I am Lyric, bringing you another beginner's video. This one is going to be about how do you know what game system to use? And I guess the more concise topic would be, what game system should I choose? There are tons of factors that go into this, but the biggest one is what type of game do you want to do? What is the genre that you're after? What is the character level that your players are at? What is their experience? Do you want to do a more story-based campaign? All of those things. So, what game system do you want to find? This is the topic that a lot of people have trouble with. And I often refer to two of the bigger role-playing games, and that is Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, which is right here, even though 5th edition is the most recent and getting to be very popular, if not already so, and Pathfinder, which is very similar to 3.5. Those two are pretty popular because they are kind of classic in the style of game that they are. So, are you looking for a campaign that is more futuristic? Are you looking for a game that is classically fantasy and very much like Lord of the Rings? Are you looking for a game that's set in World War II? Are you looking for a game that's underwater? There are so many different types of role-playing games out there, and it can be very frustrating and very tiring to try and find the right system to use. These games will pretty much come out and tell you what type of game they are. For example, Dungeons & Dragons is pretty simple in that there are dungeons and dragons, and that's the type of scenario that you can find yourself in. Even though if you get into the game more, sometimes there's no such things as dragons, and the dungeons are scarce, but it all kind of revolves around that mentality that there is fanciful stuff and middle-aged stuff, such as the dragons and the dungeons. Then there's Pathfinder, which you are on your way to find your path, and that is, like I said, very similar to Dungeons & Dragons, and that is a very fantasy-based game. And then there are games like Polaris, which is a game based on underwater civilizations after the collapse of the world as we know it now, which I will review personally in a later video. And then there are games like Dust Adventures, which another video I will do, that is about World War II after something happens that did not happen in our world. So it's a different parallel universe up until that point. So, the biggest question you can ask yourself is, what game do I want to play? And after you find that game, after you find that idea, you can very easily go on Google or at any convention, any gaming convention like Gen Con or Dragon Con or Origins or any of those conventions like that. You can pretty much just pick up a game anywhere and find exactly what you're looking for. First, you have to ask yourself the question, what do I want to play? What genre am I after? Am I after modern? Am I after a modern take on fairies? Am I after a modern take on werewolves and the like? Well, there are games like Prometheus and Werewolf and Vampire, and those books of World of Darkness, which can be placed in a modern day scenario. They have very easy rules that you can look into, and they involve not necessarily the D20 system, but a die system all on its own. Then there are games like D20 Modern, which take Dungeons & Dragons and put it in modern day times, hence the name. Then there's D20 Futuristic, which is a step further and puts it into the future, and other games very similar to that. So, asking yourself, what genre do I want, you can pick any of these games. Taking it a step further, you can also decide, what time period do I want? What factors do I want to be in game? Do I want to focus on a specific race? Do I want to focus on a specific person, this type of personality? Is there a game more specific to that? And you can go even further in these ideals and finding exactly what type of game that you want by including the conflict that you're going to create. Are they werewolves? Are the werewolves socially acceptable now? Are they still hated by mankind? Are they being hunted down to the last werewolf? Is it common knowledge, but there's none left after the siege of this and that and the other thing. So adding those different types of game conflict can also help you expand on your ideas on what you exactly want for your game. Another thing to do to find the game that you're after is try to decide on the difficulty of the game itself. Are you after a more complex style of role-playing? Are you after a more complex style of rolling up the characters, of rolling the dice? How many dice are needed for this campaign? Dungeons & Dragons is pretty average on its complexity and the necessity of these certain things. Like, you can make it a more story-based campaign and not need the dice as much, or you can make it as conflict-involved game as you need and use every single dice every single campaign. Then there are games like World of Darkness, which they revolve around the D10, and other games that revolve around the D6, and those games that only use the D6. Like, you can use the simple base games like Exiles up over here, and you can use that as a kind of board game, role-playing game intertwined, and it can add a 3D depth, a 3D layer to your campaign to make it that much more of that genre. So it really is very difficult to decide what game system that you want to use, and the ones that I suggest more often or not are the ones that I personally like to use, and it's what I base my experiences off of. So if you have any favorites, please comment below. I would love to hear them. And if you have any suggestions on what type of game that you can help other players get into, please comment below. Please check out the Dwarven Tavern videos for role-playing games that we review on a weekly, monthly, daily basis. We're bringing out new role-playing games for you from popular series like Pathfinder and the like on a constant basis, I will put it, and we look forward to seeing you in those videos. My suggestions is find a game that you are comfortable with, find a game that your players are comfortable with. If you guys set your heart on World of Darkness, or 13th Age, or 7th Sea, or Polaris, or any of those fun role-playing games, then by golly, you stay by them, and you introduce them into the world of role-playing games all on your own. And please comment below if you do have a favorite that I haven't mentioned, because I'm very curious about it. And I hope those 2 cents paid you forward at least a little bit. If you have 2 cents, please pay them to the bartender down below in the comments section. And I am once again Lyric Owens with the Dwarven Tavern, hoping that this video has given you a little more insight on how to choose your game, because that is one of the other most important parts of gaming, is the actual game itself. So once again, I am Lyric Owens of the Dwarven Tavern, and I am wishing for you to want for nothing but adventure, and at first I feared that I charged. Thank you guys for always watching, and we will see you next time.